Hey, folks, this clip is brought to you by Farm Bureau Health Plans. For better coverage, better rates, and better service, go to fbhp.com/ATOZ. That is Farm Bureau Health Plans. Alabama this week. They have an opening at offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. They made both hires this week. At offensive coordinator, they grabbed Tommy Rees from Notre Dame, a Notre Dame alum, which that was probably the most interesting part of that whole thing. A real stalwart Notre Dame guy. And then that's their offensive coordinator, and then a defensive coordinator. They went. It was. I was thinking too much about Tommy Rees. They hired
Kevin Steele.
Kevin Steele. Gosh, I couldn't think of his name. I was like, he's a former Tennessee guy. I know that much.
I was going to let you go for a few more seconds, but
I know. I just. Anyway, Kevin Steele. I just couldn't think of his name. I was thinking of background. Former Tennessee, or a Tennessee alum, former Tennessee staffer, a former Auburn staffer, a former Clemson staffer, a Clemson defensive
LSU.
coordinator.
He's been everywhere.
Yeah, he has been a real journeyman. But famously at Clemson was the defensive coordinator when Clemson got beat like 70-30, and then he got fired like the day after. Is this a sign that Alabama, because in this process, let's go back. In this process, Alabama tried to hire some people and got rejected. Specifically, the offensive coordinator at Washington. Is Saban losing his touch a little bit? Is this a discussion where we're kind of like all the people that throughout the years they've been like the dynasty is over, and then they're wrong every single year? Is that what we're about to do here?
Probably. I mean, I'm not ready to say that the dynasty is over by any means, but I think you're seeing the rest of college football start to catch up to him a little bit. Like even the games they didn't lose last year were close. And I think you're starting to see him fall into like, okay, what am I comfortable with? Where he's not wanting to evolve as much. I mean, you hire Kevin Steele. It's a guy it was his first DC at Alabama. And I think he was backed later on in some sort of, off the field role. It's not, I mean, Kevin Steele is not a guy that's ever really put down roots anywhere. He's constantly on the move, never really seems to have a home for a long time. People think that he was part of the reason Gus Malzahn got fired, that he was kind of had a mutiny there and overthrew Gus Malzahn in hopes of getting the job, and some boosters wanted him. So, I think that's part of the reason that Josh Heupel never really considered keeping him on staff when he was hired, among other reasons. So it's a really interesting hire, but it really is just like, okay, this is going to be Nick Saban's defense. Like he's just going to run what Nick Saban wants to run. Like there's not going to be any evolution or anything new. It's just going to be the old school Kevin Steele, Nick Saban type defense. And offensively, Tommy Rees, I mean, I don't know how to evaluate that guy because Notre Dame didn't really have good quarterback play last year, but the offense wasn't great. Notre Dame fans don't seem that sad that he's leaving. So I don't really know how to view that either. Brian Kelly didn't bring him to Baton Rouge. I think he might have tried, but I'm not really sure the whole extent of that. And honestly, like it's going to mean Alabama's moving to more of like a offense that Georgia runs. A lot of run the ball, control the clock, utilize your tight ends. You're going to throw the ball down the field. You have to throw the ball down the field, but it's going to be kind of that Georgia style of offense. And I feel like that's a direct response to Tennessee and some of these other up-tempo, high-scoring offenses. They want to slow it down. They want to control the clock. Doesn't always work, but if you got the talent that Alabama has and that Georgia has, it can work. But like Saban's never done that before. He's never moved backwards like into something that he used to do, and that's what he feels like he's doing with both of these hires. And usually when a coach starts doing that, that's when I'm like, okay, they're losing a little bit of what made them so great, because Saban's ability to stay ahead of everybody else, unlike Les Miles and some of these other guys that were winning championships when he was winning championships in the early mid 2000s, they didn't evolve. They kind of took this path.
Farm Bureau Health Plans has been serving Tennesseans for over 75 years, and much has changed in Tennessee over the years, but some has stayed the same. Farm Bureau Health Plans has always valued personal relationships, especially when it comes to good health and good service. Plan on Farm Bureau Health Plans for health, dental, and vision. For better coverage, better rates, and better service, go to fbhp.com/ATOZ or walk into one of their 200 plus locations across the state of Tennessee. That is fbhp.com/ATOZ. Farm Bureau health plans.
So I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen at Alabama. I don't know. I mean, I shouldn't doubt Nick Saban. None of us really should because he continues to win. But it does seem like there's some signs there that he might be losing a little bit off his fastball.
Time catches up to us all. There's no one that escapes it.
I mean, he's not going to be 90 out there doing it.
Exactly. I mean, and the man is legitimately getting old at this point. And I think we said it earlier this season when specifically, I think where I said this was when Georgia beat Tennessee. So Tennessee beats Alabama, and then Tennessee goes to play Georgia and loses at Georgia. And I said it felt like a changing of the guard at that point where, Alabama was finally losing to teams they hadn't lost to in forever. And then Georgia was just taking over as this dominant force. And I think there's some to do with it there. In terms of just the perception of Alabama and what they'll be going forward. And I mean, his staff has had so much turnover. It's always been bad because when you're that good, people are going to want to hire your guys. But it's been exceptionally bad in recent years. And then, I mean, you just turn around and I don't know the reputation that job has, but I know he's notoriously hard to work with. Obviously, he's a little short tyrant and runs that place like North Korea. And so I could absolutely see guys turning that job down. And especially like when you evaluate like them getting turned down by Washington, I'm sure Alabama fans see that and they go, how did we let the guy at Washington say no? Well, think about his position. He has one of the best quarterbacks in America coming back next year. Saban's got Jalen Milroe. Who? Like, I think Milroe was like a 4 or 5 star kid, but like he stunk it up in the one game that he played in this season or two or whatever it was. And, at Washington, one of the best quarterbacks in America coming back in one of the easiest leagues in America. What's not to like about that? You know that you're going to have a good year. And so he's going to go from there and he's going to get a head coaching job. I'm sure that's what he was thinking. And like Alabama, just as it's going to fade with time. It happens. It happened with Peyton Manning. It happens with Tom Brady. It happens with anybody and everybody. Time catches us all. And maybe this is that. I don't know. Maybe Saban's got a late career resurgence in him here. They had the number 1 recruiting class in America this season, so God knows. But I just think that it is just interesting to see, especially like that Tommy Rees hire. Like Kevin Steele, he's had an up and down journeyman career, but he's had good defenses.
I mean, you got 5-star dudes. It's hard not to have a good defense if you just halfway know what you're doing.
Exactly. Like
also, with Kevin Steele, like this is what is going to happen. I can pretty much, I can't guarantee it, but really good feeling. This is like a 1-year placeholder deal until he can hire Jeremy Pruitt next offseason.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. He wanted the word out of all of that was he wanted Pruitt back and he couldn't. I don't think that, there was something with the NCAA deal or whatever that probably held all that back.
But they don't know his penalties will be yet. It'll be clear this time a year from now.
And Pruitt would crawl through a pit of lava to get back to Alabama. So, but with Tommy Rees, I mean, that guy, I looked back at the stats. Notre Dame during his time from 2020 to 2022 took them from number 20 in 2022 to number 45 in terms of overall offense in America. And then this past year, they were number 60. Like progressively worse throughout every single year. And nothing was ever particularly remarkable. And then this season, they lost to Marshall. And they just, I don't see anything with that guy. He's not doing anything revolutionary. He's not like a Lane Kiffin where he's like pushing the envelope or anything like that. It's not some cool, like I could have seen like a Jeff Lebby, somebody like that, where you go like, okay, let's get more into this spread offense. But
there were rumors that they were interested in Lebby early on, and Lebby was not interested at all, which kind of made me think. I don't know if that's true or not. I mean, that's just rumors. They never interviewed. There was no real report connecting them. But if that is true, that means that Saban was considering that route for his offense, and that didn't work out. So he's going this way, with Rees, where it's like this, multiple tight ends, run the ball more, get bigger, ground and pound, just kind of exert your will on people. Like that's what Alabama is going to try to move to. I don't know, like that. Georgia had, just a really talented offensive line. Stetson Bennett played out of his mind, above his talent level. You had some receivers that, I mean, the scheme worked. Todd Monken's a good offensive coordinator. He schemed it up pretty well for what he had. I'm not sure that that's going to be easily, replicated at Alabama with Tommy Rees. I just don't. I mean, maybe it is. Maybe we're totally wrong about this, and it goes beautifully for them. But it seems like Saban wasn't really sure what he wanted to do. And over this last 2 years, like his teams haven't been as crisp. They haven't been as well coached. We saw in the Tennessee game, like they lost that game because of the mistakes that they made, self-imposed mistakes.
So many.
I mean, that's like Tennessee was the more disciplined team in that matchup. And that's something that you've never been able to say about a Nick Saban team ever. So I don't know if it's just the style of player with the NIL era, like his style of coaching just isn't going to work. I think that could be part of it. And that could eventually be an issue at Georgia as well. I think Kirby Smart's kind of recruiting the right guys to fit his culture down there, which is a very odd culture. But I think it's worth watching at Alabama. I can't say that it's the end of this dynasty or anything like that. That would be foolish to say that. But it certainly feels like it could be.
I always am so cautious to say that because it just obviously it's bit so many people through the years.
It will happen.
It will. It will at some
with
point.
The Patriots. Patriots are no more.
Yeah. It'll end at some point, and Alabama fans will be forced to remember what it was like before Saban showed up. Most of them,
I remember.
A lot of them are too young to even recall that Alabama sucked back then. But it'll happen. So there's that. I don't have a whole lot more to say about it. Just let's go and beat them again this year. That'll be a nice little exclamation
go win
point.
down there in Tuscaloosa. What would it be, the first time since 2003? That 5 overtime game?
I think so. Yep. Ooh,
Yeah.
I remember that one. That was a stressful one.